We've seen it happen time and time again. A black man who is ambitious, who has dreams and aspirations, but he's not there yet. He has a black woman by his side who thoroughly supports him and will do anything to help this man to make his dreams come true, because he's promised her everything when he reaches that goal. He says his success is her success. So she takes the focus off of herself and she puts it all into him. If he's in school, she makes sure that he doesn't have to go out and get a job. She works twice as hard. It seems to be working out fine. He's getting closer to his goals. It may not be that he's going to a school. Maybe he's learning a trade. Maybe he wants to start his own business. And she was there from day one. So now it's very rewarding for her. She's not a gold digger, no. She's one who helps to build the gold of the future. And he reaches it because of her support. On the outside, maybe other people don't see what she has given to him. But he knows. He knows. He knows he couldn't have reached this status of success finally after many years if it wasn't for her being selfless and not selfish. Many women just won't do that. But she did. Mind, body, and soul. Through thick and thin, when times were rough, food was lean, money was lean. The memories of the struggle. And after all of these years, when he finally makes it, he abandons her and cuts her off from what is her just due because he met a woman who wasn't there, who didn't struggle. But what makes it worse is that there seemed to be a mechanism in this brother that trips off, or actually trips on, when you meet that success, because for many, success doesn't look right unless you have a white woman on your arm. We're talking about something that is very common, but we also are talking about something that is well researched, documented. And the question is, why does this happen? Yes, there are black men who will go toward other black women, but it just seems when you look at celebrities, top businessmen, entertainers, and people who are high on the corporate ladder who finally got there after utilizing the love and support of a black woman. Now they're in a different world. There are reasons for this, but it's amazing that success only looks like success when you have a white woman on your side. Am I attacking white women? No. we want to speak about what is it in the mind of a black man that will use a sister for so many years, and once he gets there, he turns around and gets rid of her like she's a dirty old useless rag or a used piece of toilet paper. So the question is there any truth to the successful black man upgrade theory? Oh, it's not a theory, but we had to say it this way in the title so we can keep the door open for your open thought. But I definitely want to speak about this. We have to speak about this. And since I'm speaking about this now, I want to speak about something else that we will be doing on this platform. And for all who are listening, I want you to take this phone number down. 562-766-7488. If you are in the United States, we can call that number and we can have a discussion that will be open to all. It will be uncensored, and it will be posted on social media, but in a very guarded, covert way. It probably won't be posted on YouTube, but it will be posted on LanceScurvX.com. There is no censorship. So tonight, at a time that I decide, we'll open up the lines and speak about this particular topic. I will give you a page and a link where you can always access the topic of the day, whether it's the same as what I post or not. But we will be speaking on these topics through that phone number at least 6 days a week, if not 7. But back to the topic again, is there any truth to the successful black man upgrade theory? It's a question we don't really want to ask because we don't know what answers we're going to get. But let's start from the top. This conversation makes people uncomfortable because it sits directly between love, race, class, beauty, history, and black identity. It's the conversation about what sometimes happens when a black man becomes successful and suddenly the woman beside him changes. The clothes change, the neighborhood changes, the social circle changes, the lifestyle changes, and sometimes the woman changes too. I'm not talking about every black man, every interracial relationship, or even individual love story. I'm talking about a pattern that deserves to be examined instead of automatically defended or automatically condemned. Let's break it down. But let me make something clear before anybody tries to twist what I'm saying. I'm not attacking white women. I'm not saying interracial relationships are wrong. I'm not saying black men have some obligation to marry black women. Nobody can order another human being to fall in love with somebody. Attraction matters. Compatibility matters. Character matters, and personal history matters. But when personal choices repeatedly line up with social hierarchies that have existed for generations, I believe we have every right to ask whether all of those choices are free from outside influence, as we like to believe. That's where this conversation gets uncomfortable, because a preference can be personal and still be influenced by society. A person can sincerely believe something is their choice while carrying ideas they inherited from childhood, television, advertising, family, school, colonial history, social class, and years of cultural conditioning. It doesn't automatically make somebody evil. It makes them human. We're all carrying something. And the question is whether we're courageous enough to examine what we're carrying before we pass it down to the next generation. I'm especially interested in what happens to the Black woman inside this equation. For generations, Black women have been told that they're too dark, too loud, too strong, too independent, too angry, too masculine, too difficult, and somehow less feminine than women from other groups. Those stereotypes didn't appear out of thin air. Research has documented the long history of damaging stereotypes placed on Black women, including the Mammy, Sapphire, and Jezebel. Images that grew out of the racial and gender order surrounding slavery and its aftermath. So when a Black woman asks why society keeps making her prove that she deserves love, she isn't imagining the historical baggage attached to her image. And that's why I'm asking a question that goes beyond who anybody chooses to sleep with, date, or marry. I'm asking what happens psychologically when a Black man has spent his entire life inside a society that teaches him, directly and indirectly, that whiteness represents beauty, sophistication, wealth, safety, status, and acceptance. What happens when he finally gets the money, the house, the career, the connections, and the access that he never had as a young man? Does he simply choose the person he loves? Or does part of him sometimes choose what he believes represents the world he finally managed to enter? Money changes more than a bank account. Money changes access. It changes neighborhoods, restaurants, schools, social circles, vacations, professional networks, and the people who suddenly return your phone calls. A man who was ignored at one level of society can become highly desirable at another level. People who never noticed him suddenly want to know him. People who dismissed him suddenly respect him. People who once looked down on him suddenly invite him into rooms where he was never welcome. That kind of transformation can create a psychological problem that nobody talks about enough. The man isn't simply becoming richer. He's being introduced to a completely different social world. And that world may come with a completely different set of beauty standards and relationship expectations. The woman who was perfectly acceptable when he was struggling may suddenly become associated in his mind with the life he escaped. Meanwhile, the woman who represents the new environment may become associated with the life he believes he finally achieved. We're breaking it down. That's where status can become confused with attraction. A person may say, I just have a preference. Fine, but I'm going to ask the next question. Where did that preference come from? Who taught you what beautiful looks like? Who taught you what feminine looks like? Who taught you what successful looks like? Who taught you what a sophisticated woman looks like? Who taught you which features deserve admiration and which features deserve ridicule? Because if the answer is television, movies, advertising, pornography, magazines, school experiences, social media, and the surrounding culture, then we have to admit that preference doesn't develop in a vacuum. America spent generations creating racial rules around beauty, class, sexuality, and human value. Black people were placed at the bottom of a social order that treated European features as closer to the standard of civilization and beauty. Black women were particularly trapped inside a contradiction. They were expected to perform enormous amounts of labor, strength, and sacrifice while being denied the same softness, femininity, and protection that society often granted to white women. The stereotypes were powerful because they were contradictory. The black woman could be expected to be strong enough to carry everybody, but was then criticized for being too strong. She could be expected to work, sacrifice, and endure, but then be labeled unfeminine because she learned how to survive. She could be a mother, caregiver, provider, an emotional anchor, but the same qualities that made her valuable to the family could later be used against her in the dating market. Tell me I'm wrong. That history matters because the mind doesn't automatically erase yesterday simply because the calendar changes. Colonialism also created systems in many parts of the world where proximity to European culture, language, religion, education, skin tone, and institutions could become connected to social status. The details varied from place to place, but the larger psychological pattern could survive long after political colonialism ended. The colonizer could leave the land while the hierarchy remained inside people's ideas about themselves and one another. That's why colorism deserves its own conversation. Racism can tell you that your entire group is inferior. Colorism can go one step deeper and convince you that even within your own group, some people are more valuable than others because of how closely their appearance resembles an outside standard. Now let's leave emotion for a moment and look at the numbers. Pew Research Center's analysis of U.S. Census data found that in 2015, black men who had recently married were twice as likely as black women to have married someone of another race or ethnicity. 24% compared to 12%. That wasn't a tiny difference. That was a 2-to-1 gender gap. The education numbers make the conversation even more interesting. Among black newlywed men with at least a bachelor's degree, the intermarriage rate reached 30%, while the comparable figure for black women was 13%. In other words, the gender difference became especially large among highly educated black newlyweds. Now, I want to be careful here because this is where people often manipulate statistics. Those numbers don't prove that black men with degrees hate black women. They don't prove that interracial marriage automatically represents self-hatred. They don't prove that every black man who marries outside the race is trying to escape blackness. Statistics can show patterns, but statistics cannot read a person's heart. What they can do is tell us that something measurable is happening. And when something measurable happens repeatedly across decades, researchers have every reason to investigate why. That's exactly why the academic literature matters. Research published in the Journal of Marriage and Family examined the relationship between black male intermarriage and the marriage prospects of Black women. The study found that Black men who intermarried were disproportionately drawn from men with higher education, income, and occupational prestige. And it found that higher levels of Black male intermarriage in metropolitan areas were associated with lower marriage rates and lower transitions into marriage among Black women, especially highly educated Black women. That doesn't mean interracial marriage causes every problem facing Black women. It means interracial marriage can become one factor inside a much larger marriage market. That distinction matters. The problem isn't that Black women are somehow defective. The problem is that Black women are making relationship decisions inside a system that has been changing for generations. One of the laziest explanations for the marriage struggles of Black women is to simply blame Black women. She's too loud. She's too independent. She has an attitude. Makes too much money. Won't submit. Is too educated or doesn't know how to be feminine. I reject the idea that we can explain an entire demographic pattern by blaming the women who experience it. The Census Bureau has documented major educational gains among Black Americans, and Black women have played a major role in that progress. Among Black adults, women have higher levels of bachelor's and advanced degree attainment than Black men. That achievement should be celebrated, not turned into another reason to punish Black women romantically. But here's where the problem becomes complicated. Education can raise a woman's opportunities while simultaneously changing the marriage market around her. A highly educated Black woman may want a man who is intellectually, emotionally, and financially compatible with her. If the pool of men who meet those expectations becomes smaller, the problem cannot simply be explained by telling her to lower her standards. And that's where the marriage market research becomes important. The problem isn't that Black women are somehow defective. The problem is that Black women are making relationship decisions inside a system that has been changing for generations. Now let's talk about something that statistics cannot fully capture. There's a Black woman who may have been there before the money. She may have believed in him when nobody else did. She may have helped him through unemployment, depression, poverty, rejection, family problems, and failure. She may have raised children while he built his career. She may have sacrificed her own dreams because the family needed stability. She may have defended him when the world called him a failure. Then he wins. The business takes off. The music takes off. The athletic career takes off. The political career takes off. And the money arrives. The house gets bigger. The clothes get more expensive, and the social circle becomes more exclusive. Suddenly, the woman who knew him before the victory doesn't fit the picture anymore. That's the wound I'm talking about. Because when a woman loves a man during the struggle and watches him choose another world after the struggle, she may experience something deeper than rejection. She may feel as though the very qualities that once made her valuable become disposable once he gained access to something else. That doesn't mean the man owes her marriage. Nobody owes anybody romantic love because they received support in the past. But there's a moral question worth asking. When a culture repeatedly teaches people to value the person who helped them survive less than the person who makes them look successful. That's where I use the phrase, Black man upgrade theory. I'm not presenting it as a scientific law. I'm presenting it as a cultural question. Why does the upgrade sometimes seem to include the woman? Why does a new house need a new woman? Why does a new business need a new woman? Why does a new social class need a new woman? Why does the old black woman sometimes become associated with struggle while the new white woman becomes associated with success? Those questions deserve better than insults. They deserve investigation. Maybe the answer is simply attraction in some cases. Maybe the answer is social environment in others. Maybe the answer is class mobility. Maybe the answer is colorism. Maybe the answer is a desire to experience something different. Maybe the answer is rebellion against family expectations. Maybe the answer is a lifetime of subtle messages about beauty. And maybe, in some cases, internalized racial hierarchy plays a role. The mature conversation can hold all of those possibilities at the same time. There are publicly documented examples of highly successful black men who married white women, including Tiger Woods, O.J. Simpson, Clarence Thomas, Michael Strahan, Ty Diggs, and Seal. Their marriages are facts of public record, but their marriages should not be used as proof that they all shared one psychological motive. Tiger Woods married a Swedish model after becoming one of the most successful athletes in the world. O.J. Simpson married Nicole Brown after an already successful football career. Clarence Thomas married Virginia Lamp. Michael Strahan married Jean Mugli after establishing himself as a major NFL star. Tay Diggs married actress Idina Menzel during his highly visible acting career. And Seal married German model Heidi Klum during a period when both had become major international entertainment figures. But here's where I refuse to make the lazy leap. I cannot look at a marriage certificate and tell you what was inside a man's mind when he chose his wife. Neither can anybody else unless that man has actually explained his motivations. A black man marrying a white woman doesn't automatically mean he hates black women. A black woman marrying a white man doesn't automatically mean she hates black men. Love is complicated. Attraction is complicated. And human beings also are complicated. What these examples can do is put a face on a broader demographic pattern that researchers can measure. The examples make the conversation visible. The statistics make the conversation measurable. The history gives the conversation context, but none of those things gives us permission to pretend we know the private motives of strangers. Here's the distinction I want everybody to understand. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm attracted to this person or that person. There's something different about saying people who look like this are inherently better than people who look like that. There's nothing wrong with falling in love with someone from another race. There's something different about treating your own race as something you need to escape. There's nothing wrong with appreciating another culture. There's something different about believing your own culture is inferior. That's the line. That's the conversation. And that's why I don't want to turn this into a war against white women. White women didn't create every social hierarchy that black people struggle with. And white women aren't responsible for the private decisions of black men. There are white women who love black men deeply, respect black culture, raise black children with pride, and stand beside their husbands through enormous challenges. The problem isn't white women. The problem is hierarchy. This conversation also reaches beyond the United States. In Ghana, where I live, researchers examined skin color as a form of social capital in the marriage market. One study found that women surveyed believed Ghanaian men considered lighter-skinned women more attractive. Research involving South African students has likewise documented colorism in relationships and described lighter skin as being associated, in some settings, with beauty, wealth, and intelligence. The study also examined how these ideas can become internalized by Black and people of color themselves. That's important because it shows that colorism cannot simply be dismissed as an American problem. The problem can travel. The problem has traveled. Colonialism can end politically while social ideas survive culturally. Foreign rule can disappear while beauty standards remain. The flag can change while the mirror keeps telling people the same story. That's how deep conditioning works. I believe Black women deserve to have this conversation without being told to shut up. They deserve to ask why their loyalty is celebrated during struggle, but sometimes ignored during success. They deserve to ask why their education can be celebrated publicly while their independence is attacked privately. They deserve to ask why Black men can be encouraged to level up, while Black women are sometimes told that their expectations are the reason they remain single. They deserve to ask why being a strong Black woman can be considered an asset in the workplace, but a liability in the dating market. And Black men deserve to ask themselves some uncomfortable questions too. What exactly am I upgrading? Am I upgrading my lifestyle, or am I upgrading my perceived social status? Am I choosing a woman because I genuinely love her, or am I choosing an image that makes me feel like I've finally arrived? Those questions require lots of honesty. Are you up to the task to do so? Black men have spent generations fighting against being told that we're inferior. We've fought to be respected. We have fought to own businesses, build families, become educated, become politically powerful, and create wealth. We have fought to enter rooms that were once closed to us. But what happens if we finally enter those rooms and begin measuring ourselves using the same standards that once excluded us? That would be the ultimate psychological trap. Imagine spending your entire life fighting a system only to become impressed by the system's symbol of approval. Imagine being taught that your people aren't beautiful, then becoming successful and unconsciously using the same beauty hierarchy to choose your partner. You see how this makes sense? Imagine being told that your community is inferior, then becoming wealthy and deciding that your greatest proof of success is how far you can distance yourself from that community. That's not freedom. That's conditioning wearing expensive clothes. Let me say something else, because I already know the argument that will come. Who are you to tell a man who he should love? Nobody. And I'm not. A man should love who he loves. A woman should love who she loves, right? Nobody should be forced into a relationship because somebody else thinks it would make the community look better. But freedom means more than having choices. Freedom also means having the courage to examine the forces that shape those choices. If a person examines their preferences and still chooses exactly what they always wanted, fine. At least they examined it. The danger comes when we never question anything. When society teaches us for centuries that one group represents beauty and another represents ugliness, then later we act shocked when those ideas show up in dating patterns. That's not mysterious. That's psychology. A Black woman shouldn't have to compete against an entire civilization's beauty standards just to be seen as feminine. She shouldn't have to become lighter, quieter, thinner, richer, softer, poorer, more submissive or less educated just to convince somebody she's worthy. She shouldn't have to apologize for being ambitious. She shouldn't have to hide her intelligence. She shouldn't have to perform helplessness so a man can feel masculine. And she shouldn't have to accept disrespect simply because she wants a black family. But there's another side to this too. Black women should never have to prove their worth by demanding that every black man choose them. The goal shouldn't be forced loyalty. The goal should be genuine value. A healthy black community should produce men who see black women as desirable without needing legislation, pressure, or guilt to make it happen. I often think about what it means to return home after achieving success. If the community helped create you, what responsibility do you have toward that community? That doesn't mean every successful person must donate money. It doesn't mean every black man must marry a black woman. It doesn't mean every black woman must marry a black man. It means success shouldn't require contempt for where you came from. You can leave poverty without hating poor people. You can leave the neighborhood without hating the neighborhood. You can become educated without despising people who didn't receive the same opportunity. You can become wealthy without believing wealth makes you more human. And you can love someone from another race without believing your own race was beneath you. That's the distinction I want to preserve. The deepest wound isn't interracial love. The deepest wound is when black people learn to measure their own value through someone else's hierarchy. That's the part that deserves attention. Because if black men and black women genuinely understood their worth, then interracial relationships wouldn't have to represent anything other than two people who fell in love. There would be no need for the white partner to become a trophy. There would be no need for the black partner to become proof of someone's sophistication. There would simply be two human beings. But when race, class, beauty, and status become mixed together, relationships can become symbols. And once a relationship becomes a symbol, we have to ask what exactly that symbol represents. So I'm not asking black men to stop loving outside their race. I'm asking black men to examine themselves deeply enough to know whether their love is coming from genuine connection or from an unconscious desire to prove that they have escaped something. There's a difference between loving somebody because they're the person who truly makes your spirit feel at home, and choosing somebody because their appearance makes you feel more accepted by a society that once rejected you. I'm also not asking black women to sit around waiting for a black man to validate them. A woman's value cannot depend on whether a man chooses her. Black women have survived too much to make their self-worth dependent on the dating market. But I believe black women have every right to demand that the cultural conversation acknowledge what they have contributed, what they have endured, and how often their sacrifices have been treated as ordinary while their rejection has been treated as inevitable. And to black men, I would say this: don't be afraid to look in the mirror. Ask yourself what you really believe about black women. Ask yourself what you were taught about beauty when you were a child. Ask yourself whether you ever laughed at black women to impress somebody else. Ask yourself whether you ever felt embarrassed by your own mother, sisters, classmates, or girlfriends because they didn't fit the image you thought successful men were supposed to have beside them. Those questions may hurt, but sometimes healing begins exactly where the ego wants you to stop looking. Because I don't believe black men are naturally programmed to abandon black women. I believe human beings can be conditioned. I believe communities can inherit wounds. I believe colonialism, racism, slavery, colorism, classism, and media imagery can leave psychological footprints long after the original systems have changed. And I believe we can become conscious enough to identify those fingerprints instead of mistaking them for our own natural personality. So the real question isn't whether a black man can love a white woman. Of course he can. The real question is whether we have created a society where black people can love whoever they genuinely love without turning whiteness, lightness, wealth, or social access into proof that they have finally become somebody. That's the conversation I'm interested in. That's the conversation I believe can actually heal something. And if we're serious about building healthier black families, stronger black communities, and a generation that doesn't inherit the same psychological wounds, then we have to stop being afraid of uncomfortable questions. We have to stop confusing criticism with hatred. We have to stop confusing interracial love with the problem itself. The real issue is whether people we produce learn to value themselves and each other before the outside world teaches them what they're supposed to value. That's why I call this the Black Man Upgrade Theory. I hope this has helped you to understand what's going on. We've been bombarded with so many things mentally, messing up our psychological processes, and we see ourselves as something inferior, many of us, or it's uncomfortable. And I know I stirred up a lot of people by talking this way, but I talked it from how I felt, from the heart. But so much has been done to us. Is our love genuine or is it manufactured? What does success really look like? What do we think it's supposed to look like? Can you admit that you've been influenced by things outside of yourself? And can you really look into your life and say to yourself, hey, I've been influenced this way. This isn't genuine. This is what was taught to me. I'm interested in hearing your feedback. I'm definitely looking forward to your comments, your perspectives, and how you feel about this. And if you come at me, fine. We're all on different levels of ascension, and what you thought was right 10 years ago, today you may say, oh, I was wrong. That's called growth. Anyway, much love to you all. Scurv out. On to the next one. Peace.